faithfully delivering value by interpreting great books from around the world. Hi, this is Sally here with the Book Talk. Today, the book we're discussing is called Breasts. The subtitle is A History of the Natural and Unnatural. Breasts are a very special part for humans, especially for women. Besides producing milk and nurturing offspring, society has given it other roles, like attracting the opposite sex as a sexual signal, and so on. However, even for such an important body part, people know surprisingly little about it. So, today's book will explore breasts from historical, cultural, and physiological angles, showing how modern life changes human breasts and health. The author, Florence Williams, is a researcher at the Center for Humans and Nature at George Washington University, focusing on environment and health issues. Plus, she's a freelance writer who's long contributed to outlets like the New York Times and National Geographic. I've summarized this book's content into 3 questions to explain. First question, what exactly do breasts mean for humans? Second question, what special attributes do human breasts have? Why can it reflect environmental issues? Third question, how can we reduce the risk of breast cancer? First, let's tackle that first question. What exactly do breasts mean for humans? Nowadays, people often see breasts as a symbol of feminine curves and a key feature for attracting mates, just like a peacock's tail. But actually, breasts' most vital role is defining our species. Humans are mammals who nurture young through breastfeeding. So, to adapt to this unique nurturing, humans evolved matching body structures over time. For instance, to make sucking easier, humans developed lips. Also, through long-term nipple sucking and milk swallowing, the human jaw gained flexibility, and we evolved a neck and larynx, paving the way for speech. Oddly, while all mammals have mammary glands to secrete milk for offspring, only humans have large breasts, made not just of glands but fat and connective tissue too. If all they needed to do was feed infants, breasts would only need to be half an eggshell size. That'd be enough. No need for large voluptuous ones. Um, it's so why did human breasts evolve to their current form? One theory suggests breasts evolved as sexual signals to attract mates. This view dates back to Darwin's era, and modern research has partly confirmed it. Experiments show men observing women typically look first at the chest, then face, back to chest, cycling between body parts. Each time their gaze lingers longer on the chest. When shown female images for under 200 milliseconds, men's eyes fixate on breasts. Such results imply breasts evolved to signal potential mates. This indicates a sexually mature female at prime reproductive age. Yet this inference has significant flaws. First, not all cultures emphasize large breasts for sexual attraction. Cultural preferences vary widely. Second, if large breasts indicate fertility, why do many small-breast women have equal reproductive success? This likely projects modern cultural biases onto evolutionary history. Yet because breasts are seen as sexual signals, a concerning social phenomenon emerges. Studies confirm silicone implants used in breast augmentation harm health, causing joint swelling, joint pain, hand numbness, frequent muscle spasms, etc. Even the FDA and implant manufacturers acknowledge this. Yet despite this, the breast augmentation industry continues booming. Thus, this sexual attraction explanation faces opposition from scientists and ethicists who generally support alternative views. Another theory proposes human breasts evolved to accommodate infant head shape, making breastfeeding easier. Humans have large brains with newborns' heads nearly 5 times larger than similar-sized mammals. To let infants pass smoothly through the mother's narrow hips during birth, babies must have flat faces. That's why humans don't have protruding snouts like other mammals. However, the baby's flat face and mother's flat chest didn't work well together, so humans evolved rounded breasts. And looking at mammary glands' original function, it wasn't about attracting mates. All mammalian mammary glands have 3 inherited functions. The first and most obvious is providing highly adapted food for young mammals. Milk. For example, mammary glands adjust based on climate, fetus, gender, and more. Take seal pups near Antarctica. They must quadruple their weight within 6 weeks of birth to withstand the cold. That's why seal milk is about half fat, the highest fat content known in any milk. It even turns into cream when exposed to cold wind. Similarly, mother monkeys automatically produce slightly different milk for male and female infants. Milk for males has more fat, keeping them fuller longer. Less, male infants feed less frequently, freeing up time to develop foraging skills. Milk for female infants is thinner, requiring more frequent feeding. So females spend more time near their mothers, fostering future parenting skills. Beyond that, milk boosts young mammals' immunity. Second, mammary glands produce hormones that act as natural contraception, ensuring proper spacing between pregnancies. As long as a mammal is nursing, these hormones lower the chance of conceiving again. Lastly, because young mammals receive milk, they can focus on learning skills instead of struggling to find food. Why do we say that? With mothers providing food, mammals can roam widely rather than being confined to areas where young can easily forage. For instance, whales spend part of each year feeding in cold, food-rich polar regions to build fat reserves. Then they migrate to tropical waters with scarce food but warm climates to give birth and nurse their calves. At the same time, since young mammals must stay near their mothers constantly, they get opportunities to learn survival skills from them. During this learning, some form of communication between parent and offspring is unavoidable. It can be said that humanity's proud evolution of cognition and language may be closely tied to nursing activities. Thus, mammary glands also serve to nurture offspring. Therefore, compared to attracting mates, the view that breasts evolved for nursing seems more convincing. Yet why humans evolved breasts remains scientifically unresolved. All right, let's revisit the key arguments from part one. Evolutionarily, most scientists believe breasts primarily nurture infants rather than attract mates. Breastfeeding not only ensured human survival, but also aided language and advanced cognition. So what special attributes do human breasts have? That's our second question. Breasts uniquely accumulate chemicals due to two main reasons. First, human membranes like skin are permeable, and breasts have far higher fat content than other body parts. Thus, lipophilic toxins permeate and accumulate densely in breast fat. Second, breasts contain abundant receptors, large biomolecules that bind to hormones or drugs, altering cell function. On cell membranes, they act like hungry Venus flytraps, capturing chemicals, especially estrogen. Estrogen is a female hormone promoting secondary sexual characteristics and reproductive organ maturation. Actually, body-produced estrogen is essential, and natural plant estrogens are beneficial as they co-evolved with humans. For example, soy isoflavones can prevent breast cancer recurrence. But artificial estrogens like bisphenol A, created post-industrial revolution, are evolutionarily unfamiliar, making adaptation difficult. So, artificial estrogens have complex and profound impacts once inside the body, altering metabolism, controlling cell division, promoting mammary duct growth, and triggering cancer. Then, how do breasts absorb these chemicals from the environment? To answer this, the author and her daughter conducted an experiment themselves. The experiment had two phases. The first phase was called the toxin phase. Essentially, they lived normally for 3 days, eating, drinking, and using supermarket shampoos, lotions, and daily products. After 3 days, they collected urine in glass jars for lab testing to measure accumulated chemicals. A week later, they began the second phase. This process was strict. They had to avoid triclosan. Triclosan is an antibacterial agent widely used in soaps, toothpaste, and household chemicals. This meant they could only use rigorously tested organic products, avoiding most commercial items. Bisphenol A, BPA, developed in the 1930s as a synthetic estrogen to prevent miscarriages, failed medically. But this compound soon found other uses, like making polycarbonate plastics. People unknowingly ingest BPA when using plastics, which promotes cancer cell growth. Thus, they avoided food touched by plastic wrap, bags, or containers. They also ate only vegetarian, since meat accumulates chemicals, and avoided cars due to chemical releasing interiors. After days of detox, they retested urine for comparison. The author's BPA levels dropped from 5.1 nanograms per milliliter to 0.8 nanograms per milliliter, a 85% decrease post-detox. Pre-detox triclosan was 141 nanograms per milliliter versus the US average of 12 nanograms per milliliter for women. And this was likely due to daily use of supermarket toothpaste, bath foam, lotions, deodorants, and soaps. After 1 week of detox, stopping these products, her triclosan levels dropped by 99%. These tests show how easily chemicals enter our bodies. It's nearly impossible to avoid. For example, supermarket receipts use thermal paper coated with BPA, as do boarding passes. Though people don't eat receipts or passes, the substance easily transfers to skin and enters the body. The common defense is that discussing toxicity without considering dosage is unscientific, meaning if chemical traces are minuscule, they might not harm us. That synthetic estrogens act differently. Tiny doses can subtly trigger bodily changes, and moreover, our bodies reflect the chemical environment we live in. California girls have America's highest flame retardant levels, likely due to strict flammability standards. New York City girls show more cotton, a nicotine metabolite indicating tobacco exposure. Cincinnati girls have higher PFOA levels, a chemical used in Teflon production. Teflon is known as non-stick coating or easy clean material. Cincinnati hosts many Teflon factories. What effects do these chemicals have? A key harm is earlier female puberty, which increases breast cancer risk. Per the Breast Cancer Fund's 2007 report, delaying puberty by 1 year could prevent thousands of breast cancer cases. Some ask, can I avoid these chemicals by staying home? It's very difficult. Before her research, the author lived in a picturesque Montana town surrounded by trees, far from industrial zones and highways. She didn't smoke, exercised regularly, ate mostly organic, and installed water filters on taps and ice makers. So before the experiment, the author always assumed her chemical levels would be better than others. But in reality, her test results were still terrible. Because unless governments and chemical companies change how they test, manufacture, and market these products, your efforts are futile. All right, let's revisit the key points from part 2. Human breasts contain abundant fat and receptors, capturing and storing environmental chemicals. These chemicals are nearly ubiquitous in daily life, impossible to fully avoid. The most direct impact is causing earlier puberty in girls, increasing breast cancer risk. In the US, there are about 200,000 breast cancer cases yearly, with 40,000 deaths. Globally, breast cancer is the leading cancer killer of women, over 1 million diagnoses annually. Truly chilling data. And so how can we actually reduce breast cancer incidence? That's our final question today. There are 2 natural, effective methods: pregnancy and breastfeeding. First, let's discuss pregnancy. Through breast monitoring, scientists found significant structural changes before and after pregnancy. For instance, late in pregnancy, breast stem cells transform into anti-cancer lactation equipment, activating tumor suppressor genes. And this protection persists even after weaning. Women who've never been pregnant have stem cells that never transform, but meaning they can't activate anti-cancer mechanisms, significantly raising their disease risk. However, abortion or miscarriage doesn't provide this effect. Only full-term pregnancy does. Artificial pseudo-pregnancy through drugs also fails, as precise human dosing is difficult. Of course, too many births increase breast cancer risk instead. A 201 study found more births correlate with higher triple negative breast cancer risk. Exceeding 3 births significantly raises it. Uh, Thus, 1 or 2 full term pregnancies most effectively reduce incidence. Now, about breastfeeding, while widely promoted, the author sees both benefits and drawbacks. So, why do we say that? On one hand, breast milk has irreplaceable benefits. For mothers, breastfeeding helps them regain weight better and reduces breast cancer risk. For infants, breast milk can effectively boost their own immunity. In past studies, scientists thought breast milk was sterile, like urine, but recent research found milk is more like yogurt, packed with live bacteria whose roles are still unclear. These microbes act like vaccines, protecting the baby's health. For example, breast milk sugars include a type called oligosaccharides. Though not directly digested by the gut, they feed beneficial bacteria in the body. These bacteria can help strengthen the body's immunity. Oligosaccharides aren't found elsewhere in nature, and they vary by mother, changing with blood type. So formula companies work hard to synthesize these unique breast milk sugars and add them to dairy products. But this is tough because oligosaccharides are often large and complex, making lab synthesis really difficult. You know, even now, labs can only make a few simpler types with poor results. Besides that, the key component in human milk is a glycoprotein called lactoferrin, has strong anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-infective properties, binds iron to fight germs, and is most abundant in breast milk. And this glycoprotein is hard to synthesize artificially. So, doesn't breast milk sound awesome? Indeed, this is exactly why breastfeeding is promoted today. But on the other hand, modern industrial society has changed breasts. As we mentioned earlier, breasts accumulate lots of chemicals from the environment, which enter the milk during breastfeeding. That means when mothers breastfeed babies, they not only provide fats and sugars needed for immune systems, cell metabolism, and brain development, but also feed them paints, thinners, dry cleaning fluids, wood preservatives, flame retardants, toilet deodorants, cosmetic additives, gasoline byproducts, rocket fuels, pesticides, fungicides, and more. However, babies absorb far higher doses of chemicals than their mothers. This isn't just due to their smaller size or breast milk being their primary food. It's because breast milk contains more concentrated pollutants, following the food chain principle called biomagnification. Simply put, top predators accumulate concentrated energy and persistent chemicals from lower food chain levels. For example, Inuit people in the Arctic are among the most contaminated populations. Though people imagine the Arctic as pristine with minimal industrial pollution, so why are the Inuits so heavily contaminated? Because their diet consists of high-fat animals like seals and walruses, fat that stores chemicals. Seals and walruses accumulate oceanic pollutants in their bodies. As top predators in their food chain, Inuit absorb the accumulated chemicals from the entire chain. These chemicals significantly impact breast milk when they enter the human body. A historical accident taught us a harsh lesson. In 1974, a Michigan factory handling animal feed and flame retardants had workers mix up labels on product bags. This mistake led millions of Michigan animals to consume flame retardants, and 9 million people ate contaminated dairy or meat for a year. In following years, affected adults developed immune or thyroid disorders, pregnant women miscarried, and fetuses were contaminated. Girls born to these mothers entered puberty nearly a year earlier. Boys showed more congenital urogenital defects and developmental delays. Studies show breastfeeding transfers 2 to 3% of maternal toxins monthly, more than prenatal exposure. After a year of nursing, mothers silently transfer about 30% of toxins, a problem for all mammals. Research shows adult striped or bottlenose dolphins become cleanest after offloading 91% of chemicals to offspring, especially firstborn calves. Sobering realization, Sobering realization passively bears the brunt of environmental disasters. But conversely, mothers significantly reduce their own pollutants through breastfeeding. That's why in developed countries, breastfeeding isn't necessarily 100% beneficial for the child. As mothers, we certainly don't want to metabolize chemicals this way, that you must face this reality. The author highlights this harsh truth to raise awareness about environmental dangers, urging change to restore breastfeeding as nature's optimal nurturing method. Fortunately, change is happening as humanity acts on these realizations. In 2004, the UN's Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants took effect, with 162 nations agreeing to ban or restrict them. 21 persistent pollutants, mostly pesticides plus chemicals from agricultural, lubricant, flame retardant uses. Personally, you should know your breasts, understand their environment and potential harms, minimize or selectively use commercial products, get regular breast exams, and protect them as best you can. All right, let's summarize today's key points. First, evolutionarily, breast nursing function ensured human survival and aided language or cognition development. But civilization shifted this towards sexual attraction, even driving unhealthy augmentation surgeries. Second, breasts, fat, and receptors capture environmental chemicals that accelerate puberty and increase breast cancer risk. Third, full-term pregnancy and breastfeeding can reduce women's breast cancer risk, but nursing transfers maternal toxins to children, though breastfeeding remains nature's gift to all mammals. Yet, with industrial society, breasts and nursing entered an unnatural chapter of history. Chemicals permeating breasts mirror industrial pollution. They've become the truest reflection of our living environment. Understanding breasts means recognizing both their biological nature and social dimensions. Protecting breast health isn't just personal, it's deeply tied to our environment. Only with a healthier environment can we have healthier breasts. Breasts, a natural and unnatural history. That concludes our interpretation. Reading notes below the audio. Next great book awaits you.